Yeah, I just want to totally welcome you to a little discussion about, again, properly putting the horse on the bit. And tell me a little bit like about you. I know you're a vet, and again, this is Angela McLeod from Australia, originally from New Zealand. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, correct.
So we are so thrilled to have, an Academy member from so far away and someone so educated and a vet. And I just love the article that you wrote. And I know you know a lot more than even what you wrote in the article. So I'd love to, yeah, just have you introduce yourself and what inspired you to, want to get deeper into the horse's back and the biomechanics of going on the bit.
Okay, well, basically, I've been riding most of my life. It wasn't until I went to Germany, I took my horse to Germany, that I started to learn all this stuff. So I think it's the same in the States, correct me if I'm wrong, but in Australia and New Zealand, riders don't really get a lot of theory instruction. And yeah, in Germany, they have a bit of a system so that anyone who rides does get basic. I hate that it's called biomechanics, what I do, because it makes people think it's something alternative that they don't need to know about. But I believe everyone who rides should know about biomechanics.
Yeah,
so
it's
in
almost
Germany,
like fundamentals.
it's fundamental. So in Germany, you wouldn't find someone who didn't know about natural crookedness, who didn't know about the German training scale. Whereas in Australia, I had a friend ask me the other day because I posted something about it. She said, "What's this German training scale?" She competes in eventing and dressage. She didn't know what it was. I have a lady who's in her 80s, has been breeding horses her whole life. And I just told her her horse had a bridle lameness because it was crooked. She said, "What's this natural crookedness? I've never heard of it." 80 years old, breeding horses all their life, doesn't know about it. So, yeah. I think everyone who wants to ride and train horses has they owe it to the horse to learn.
It's like a total responsibility.
So biomechanics basically is the study of the mechanics of movement and structure of a living organism. And so if you're going to sit on a horse, you're going to affect its movement or structure. It could be in a positive or a negative way. So you need to learn about this structure. You need to learn how the horse needs to move, how it needs to alter the way it moves, or alter the way, strengthen up so that it can carry a rider. So the first thing a rider needs to do, I'm losing my words here, but the first thing they need to do when they start training a horse is to get the horse to move in its natural way, so it's not adversely affected by the rider's weight. Because normally the rider will get on, the horse will stiffen its back, go hollow, because it doesn't know how to carry the rider. It needs to learn which muscles to use and how it can do this and carry the rider, which is basically a horse being over the back. So the first stage of training is getting a horse working relaxed, supple, over the back, into a contact. And then they will start to build up the muscles required for this, which is not the long back muscle. So the long back muscle is for movement. And they're quite good at using the long back muscle when they're free in the pasture. But as soon as someone gets on them, they'll stiffen this up because they've got an unaccustomed weight on their back. They have to learn how to use other muscles so that they can carry the weight of the rider, so that this movement muscle can still work. Once they can do this, you can start to build up a connection over the back, build up the horse's top line. This takes 1 to 2 years to build a solid connection to the bit. And then only after this can you start to increase the weight carried by the hindquarters and to improve collection and improve the horse's gaits. So a lot of people think that there are 2 different stages to riding. There's long and low, and then there's up and collected, but it's all kind of, it's gradually, you become more collected. The horse can take more weight behind. So in the early stages, it needs to put its head low so that gravity can help it to raise the back. So it's got the nuchal ligament, which, as you speak about a lot, it pulls the vertebrae forward and helps raise the back when the horse drops his neck. So if the horse has its head down really low, the nuchal ligament is doing all the work. And the nuchal ligament doesn't take energy. It's just a ligament. It's not muscles. So that's easier for the horse in the early stages. the higher it has its head, the more the upper neck muscles come into the equation to carry the weight of the head and neck. So when the horse is strong and it's his hindquarters, and he can use his hindquarters to start to raise his back, his upper neck muscles become stronger. So the more the horse uses his hindquarters, the more his neck will develop, and you'll see a stronger upper neck muscle definition. As the horse is able to take more weight behind and carry himself up higher. I've been babbling for a little while.
You what?
I've been babbling for a little while.
I love it. No, and it's so great to talk to like a modern day veterinarian about everything that Charles de Comfy speaks about too. And that was like when he was learning, and everything he learned was passed down from his teachers in the academy, that they didn't have ultrasound machines and they didn't know kissing spines existed, but they just knew, well, that kind of riding was wrong, and this kind of riding is correct. And they could see, how the horse developed and how much time it truly takes. And that was one of my questions. Because I really feel like, there's such a need to share this information from experts. And I'm certainly not a vet. And so it's so great to have you here. I'm just doing my best being a good rider, and a good caretaker for the horse. And I take that responsibility really seriously of, we have to create the right situation for the horse to carry us without pain. And, I always say to my riders too, I'm like, you need to love your horse enough. I know you give them lots of apples and carrots, but you need to love him enough to help him carry you if you want him to be a riding horse, because they were never meant to carry us or for anything to be up there, because we're sitting on the weakest part of their body and holding on to the most sensitive, and we have to respect that and do the building up of their body so that they can do that job. And I just loved your article, and I'll share it again in Team Tate TV, because I feel like everyone needs to read it, and like you, that it's our responsibility to understand that. And
so we can, like I said, we can either be a detriment to our horse by riding him. We can make him lame, we can make him sore on his back, we can make his life, and he won't want to come and be ridden. Or we can train him so that he can carry us and he becomes stronger, his paces improve, he becomes an athlete and he looks forward to being ridden because he knows that it's good for him. And so I think over the year, it does take years to train a horse correctly, but the horse will gradually he'll want to come riding. You'll see that he enjoys being ridden. You can see his muscles change. They become more beautiful. Like a horse that looked ordinary just starts to look, amazing.
Yeah.
And but the other way around, you can have strange bulgy muscles and, the top of the neck.
Yeah.
And you're like,
oof.
And
yes.
So,
and how do you, without being the bearer of bad news to everybody? I mean, because Charles says that exact same thing. And I know Charles has worked a lot with Gerd Heuschmann, Dr. Gerd Heuschmann, which I know you've worked closely with. And I remember hearing him the first time at the Global Dressage Forum in Holland. And I have my notebook from that time, and I have asterisks all over his name. And I'm like, Dr. Gerd Heuschmann, this was amazing, and I'm like, I will remember this name forever. He is speaking the truth, and it was such a breath of fresh air in the high top sport to hear this person really talk about the importance of why we need to do what all the old books say, and then to know you've worked with him just brought it really full circle of how do we get the news more out, and without being super negative to well, you're riding your horse totally wrong. And I've attempted to do it through the videos and the academy of you've got to get the neck, the head below the withers, and you've even for the Grand Prix horses. So Can you talk a little bit about that, what your feeling is from a veterinarian standpoint and all your research on the back, why that's also important for every horse to do that?
Well, it's why it's so important to get the neck out. Okay.
Well, and yeah, like the proper posture.
Yeah. So the horse has different muscles as we do. They've got movement muscles and postural muscles.
Mhm.
And like I said, the muscle that we sit directly on top of is a movement muscle. So it can't carry the weight of the rider. It's not used for that. It's used for movement. The muscles responsible for holding the back up are the multifidus muscles, which are like tiny little muscles that stabilize the spine, and the upper neck muscles.
Mhm.
But the upper neck muscles, the horse isn't used to carrying a rider, so they have to be developed gradually over time. So like I said, the lower the horse has its neck, the more work the nuchal ligament is doing, although it's not work, it's just gravity doing the work. And then as it gradually starts to engage its hindquarters under this raised back, then it will start to use its neck muscles more and use its hindquarters more and build up those muscles. So the hindquarters are involved in raising the back from behind, and the neck, just by dropping forward, raises the back from the front. So another big thing is natural crookedness, which I think you've spoken about before, I think in one of your lectures.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is one of the biggest issues, and one of the main reasons, or any, for resistances with horses, with brain lameness, everything like that, behavioural problems. And basically, if a horse isn't working over the back, he will be crooked. He'll be crooked. In my mind, they're mostly hollow to the right. I think other people have different opinions, but a lot of people think the same thing, that it's normally hollow to the right, which means they evade with their right hind leg out to the side and push their weight onto the left shoulder. So if they're moving in this way, the hind limb, the right hind limb, is not under the body supporting the body weight, and so the back can't come up. And so anything you do, if you want the horse to go more forward, if you want to drive him as hard as you can and say he's lazy, he can't. Or if you want him to turn the other way, you can pull as hard as you like on the left rein, on the inside rein, you just can't turn. And it's like a hose with a kink in it. The water can't go through. First, you've got to get the kink out, which means getting that evading right hind underneath the body so that the horse can work over the back. And then from there, you can start to work on bending, or the horse will suddenly be able to move, will suddenly go forward because he has room under his back for his hind legs to come under. So as soon as the horse starts working over the back, and you hear the snorts, and the horse, he will start to be less late. He won't be lazy anymore. Like, you won't be kicking your horse anymore, and you won't have all these kind of evasions. And if horses have been ridden in this way for a long time, and they're just like so used to moving with a hollow back and being crooked, it can be really difficult to fix this. But you've got to go back to the German training scale, which obviously relaxation is the first one. If the horse is stressed out, he can't do anything because his muscles will be tight. Like, he won't have a good blood supply to his muscles because he'll be tense, he'll be in flight mode. So the horse needs to be relaxed. You need to figure out what you need to do for the horse to be relaxed. Then you need to teach him, you need to get his muscles supple, which involves engaging the hind leg. Normally it's easier to start on the hollow side because they already have a bend in their body to this way. And if you can engage the inside hind leg and teach them to step underneath the body weight, and they'll start to stretch forward and down towards the bridle, like towards the bit. So I gave a lesson last week to a girl with a standardbred. I don't know if you have many trotters over there, but I did not know what to expect. I haven't ridden a trotter since I was a child. But this horse, she'd been having trouble because he was lame. He was doing endurance rides. He was not able to start because he was lame. But standardbreds, they don't have a lot going for them. The way they've been trained, they're like completely the opposite of dressage horses. They're made to be hollow. They're actually encouraged to be hollow because they tie their heads up, so they don't want them to canter. So this horse did not know how to go, and yes, he looked quite obviously lame. But this girl did a really good job, and eventually we got him just through teaching him to use himself better. He went sound. So it doesn't always happen as quickly as that, and she will have to do a lot of work. Like, this is a thing that people need to realise. it takes time to build muscles. It takes time.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if this is just a horse people thing, but everyone seems to want an immediate fix. You know, they say, oh, my horse is doing this, this, this.
Yeah.
I've had the dentist out, I've had the chiropractor, I've had, I don't know, the crystal man, whatever, and it didn't fix it. Oh, you think? You know?
It's so true. Yeah, or one lesson. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so normally, recently, the horses that I deal with, it's because they're lame, and I say to them, and which is a hard thing to say. Like you said, it's hard to say your horse is lame because you're not riding it properly. But, you know, I try to be kind of tactful. But then they think it's going to be fixed in one lesson, which it's not. It's going to take work. It's going to take understanding and, work and patience. And when you start to see an improvement, your horse is going to have sore muscles from using itself the way it's never used itself before. And so you've got to keep that in mind too. But it's just basically treating the horse as an athlete and not as a piece of sports equipment.
Agreed. And like sometimes I say that to my students too, of, you know, there's like a bad sore and then there's like a good sore. Like even when we go to the gym, like at first it's like, ooh, I haven't used those muscles before. And like there's also I'm using this in the wrong way and now it's sore, you know, and it's like you've got to kind of differentiate, like he's back sore, you know, well, that's because he's probably hollow and crooked. And but then when he starts to go differently, like that's a different kind of soreness. And it's hard to, you know, help students, but you know, I think it's helpful when they work out too, because otherwise you need to know like what your own experience is in that, because you know people go to the gym for like 2 weeks and they're like, well, I don't see a difference. It's like, well, you have to go even longer than 2 weeks or whatever. And that's we're big fans of taking pictures of the horses, because you know their bodies just totally change, and it should look rounder and filled up behind the saddle, and the back should look, you know, round in the neck, you know. And I always say like muscles don't lie. And so even like when a horse comes to me for a lesson, it's like you get a story as you like look at their body and how their muscles been built. And then it's sort of like, okay, let's unwind this whole knot that's been happening, you know, because a lot of times the symptom that they come with, oh, I can't get a fine change to this one direction, you know. And it's like, well, let's unwind the knot and like go 10 steps back, and he's crooked and bracing, and let's begin there, you know. And that it takes so much time. And I mean, that's a whole other half of it, of is inspiring people to take the time and look for the little pieces that start to change.
But about the importance of being on the bit. So I think this is like not well understood among riders at all. But the first 3 stages of the training scale, and I think Gerd says this too, these are the ones that are like people don't pay them enough attention. And relaxation, suppleness, contact. This is all you want until you've built up the horse's top line. And like there's plenty of riders in top level tests, their horse is not relaxed. He's swishing his tail, you know, uneven PF steps. So they're not working over the back. They're quite obviously not working over the back. All of these signs that people should recognize, and you know, the horse shouldn't be marked highly if it's doing an uneven PF, because it's not supple or straight. So and it's hard. Like I can't do PF myself, so I can't really, but I can see what's going on. And you know, the horse needs to go back a step, it needs to go back and be going forward into the contact, and even contact on both reins. And but a lot of times people take shortcuts because the horses, you know, they're great creatures. So they can tolerate a lot, and they will just keep going despite the fact that they're in pain. And so, but then there's other horses that don't, and then people say there's something wrong with this horse, and then
it's a jerk. But
but yeah, if people would just take the time to learn the theory, and it just takes so much of the frustration out of learning to ride as well. Like,
Yeah.
I used to get so frustrated. I rode for years. I was doing eventing up to it's 3-star now, and I hated dressage. I just did not understand it. Why is this horse not? Why is he throwing his head around? Fucking hell. Anyway. But now that I understand everything, you can always, even if you're annoyed with the horse because he's doing something, you can't get a nice contact, you can't get him to relax. You can kind of find a reason or think of a way around it.
Yeah.
You can problem solve yourself.
Exactly. It's easy to just like have some type of map, a little bit of like, I understand what needs to be happening because of the theory and the understanding of that. And I recognize this horse is like all horses because they're, whether it's $1 or like $1 million, like they all, and that's what's hard for me to watch is like super fancy horses at 4 years old doing things like they should not be doing. And I always say, like, just because your horse can be fancy doesn't mean he should. Like I ride my horses, especially my young horses, it's pretty boring. It's pretty quiet. It's pretty boring. And, we're working on stretching and just finding that balance under the rider. And like, again, that straightness of like stacking the horse up on all 4 feet, which for me feels balanced, but it's also straightness. Like when we talk about that, like that equal loading of all 4 feet. And I loved it in your article also when you said that natural balance is a little bit slower than what we all think it could be, that then I see all these young horses like, well, I've got to go forward. And it's like, I know, but that's not speed, and like you're running the horse past its natural balance and it's not straight yet. And then it's just like, I'm going to get that horse in 5 years and its tongue's going to be out and it's going to be a spooky mess, and it's like, just begin it the right way from the beginning, and then take the time that it takes. And that's, we just got to keep getting that message out there. And I keep, sometimes it's frustrating to compete because the judges sometimes don't see things that we are saying, just like with the piaffe, and the horse is like white sweated and, totally tensed out. And that horse can sometimes win. And then it's like, but that's not the right thing, and that can be really frustrating. But it's like, we just have to kind of keep showing up and keep showing up out there so that people's eyes are also developed in like what's right, what does it look like. So like, how would you describe what a horse looks like functioning correctly?
Okay, well, they have an even rhythm for sure. If they're working over the back, it's like a pendulum, the rhythm from if it's trotting, it's like a pendulum. They snort as they start to relax, as the long back muscle is connected to the ribs. And so once that's relaxed and working properly, they can breathe freely and they start to snort. Their tail will swing like a pendulum from side to side as it's connected to the back muscle. So it will swing with the back muscle. It won't be swishing around. If it's swishing around, then the back's tense. Swishing around is bad. And they'll start to chew on the bit softly, but you won't see them opening and closing their mouth. They'll just be chewing softly. And there's a sound that they make when they're doing that. It's like sucking on the bit. Like, I can't do it, but it's not like chomping on the bit. They're just sucking. They make this little sucking noise, and they start to get lipstick on, the sides of their mouth. They just look, they look happy in their expression, in their eye.
Yeah, that's so funny. I just said this yesterday to one of my students. I'm like, one of the most important things you should ever look at in the mirror while you're riding is your horse's eye. I just said that yesterday because it's like, that tells the story of like, am I agitating you? Like, are you okay with what we're doing? Like, we want to have a joyful experience, and if it's physically not comfortable for them, that's, or they're worried or they're nervous. I mean, I trot past the mirror and like that's the first thing, yeah, and then I kind of look at the hind legs and see like what, or my position, like what's happening. But the eye is the first thing I look at, like, how are you feeling during this workout? As I'm your physical therapist and we're slowly building the body we need you to have to do the job we're going to ask, like that's only fair, and that's so important, so important.
And conversely, like if you're looking at a horse that's not going correctly, you would see like the tail swishing around. The horse might be grinding its teeth, excessive foam flying everywhere. His back will be hollow, but it might be hard for some people to see that if its head's tucked in. And you'll notice, especially the hind legs won't be parallel to the front legs in the trot. If you took a photo, they'll be behind the parallel. And in collected work, the horse will start to have an uneven rhythm. It will start to take a shorter stride with one hind leg, and the movement will look jerky as well. It won't look like the horse is springing off the ground. So that's another thing. When the horse is using its back correctly, it provides cushioning for the joints, so the joints take less wear and tear. Whereas if the back is hollow, they hit the ground. You can hear them hitting the ground. Yeah. And so
we were looking at a video of a horse, beautiful mover, huge mover, and then the sound had been off, and then we clicked on it again and the sound came on and you could hear it like cantering and like hitting the ground, and I was like, no way am I gonna buy that back, because it was just like you could hear it was like echoing, and at first it was like, wow, that's a really expressive mover, like, okay, that's interesting. And then we played it like right away again and the sound came on and it was like, hard no, hard pass, like no way. And I think it's so important too to like help people recognize like what is right and what isn't right. And like, I know we talked a lot, we actually had this conversation up in the barn today because we were talking about spinal cord impingement and rein lameness and purity faults of the gaits from too much contact and pressure in the reins. And like, what is your thought about that, as far as like, that's wrong, obviously, but like, I know kissing spines was like a big thing when, veterinarians were able to discover like that was a real cause of back pain. And like, what kind of research is about the neck? And like, I just feel like that's a real sensitive spot. And I feel like in general, a lot of people's idea of contact is too strong, and the horses feel a little bit trapped in their necks. And I just always think about their spinal column and like the blockages that would happen with that kind of like backwards riding.
Yeah, you can definitely have pathology in the pole and the neck from the excessive rein contact. And I worked at places in Germany and saw riders come back with their horses' mouths bleeding, like, so yeah, horses put up with a lot of rubbish. But if this person understood, like he was obviously frustrated himself, the horse wouldn't do what he wanted, but if he understood the biomechanics, he would have known that this is not going to help. Like, any kind of pressure on the horse's mouth is just stopping the hind legs from working, it's stopping the back from coming up, it's stopping you from achieving what you want to achieve. But it's just having that knowledge and then, experimenting, listening to your horse, so your horse can teach you what the correct feeling is, or having trainers, watching videos and seeing what it looks like. But the contact, although you accept the contact, so there's another whole school of thought. So people sometimes who get involved in biomechanics or something similar, and they don't like what they're seeing at dressage competitions or at competitive sports, they go completely the other way, and they don't want to touch the horse's mouth. But this is not good either, because you need to recycle the energy back to the hindquarters, or you're never going to have a connection. Like the horse is going to be giving you all this energy, but it's just, where are you? And it's just like, it's not going to work. You've got to accept the energy. It has to come from the hindquarters, but you have to accept it. And it may sometimes be a little bit stronger than, like some horses might take a firmer contact, but it's what they are giving you. And you can try and just reduce a little bit, like with half volts. Once you've got the horse strong, you can try to get them a little bit lighter, but it's never an unpleasant feeling. It's always
it feels like it's rolling over.
Yeah, and it's like I sometimes say, like a child, you're taking a child for a walk, or they're taking you. Yeah, the child's taking you for a walk, so you don't want them to be running away and getting hit by a car, but you also kind of like the child, so you're not going to be nasty to it, like yanking it back. So it's just like that.
Yeah, that's an awesome analogy of like, yeah, it's like the little toddler is like up in front of you taking you for a walk, but it's like you're not like, get back here,
Yeah, you want to break their arm.
Yeah, I love that. And like, what all are you doing there in Australia to like, do you have like clinics and do you travel? And because you're so great at explaining. I love that. And I just feel like we all need to talk about this as much as possible and get the word out, because again, just like in the academy, like when you know better, you can do better. And like so I'd love to hear like what you've been up to down
not
there.
much this year, so
that's true.
I did have plans. Obviously I'm a vet, so I just do general vet work, but I've given clinics in Brazil and New Zealand. I was supposed to be going to California this year. I've got a friend over there. I was going to do one there, but never mind. And then I was going to do Equitana in Australia, but that got cancelled. But yeah, and I write articles. It's like I make more money doing vet work, but this is my passion. I want to get out and just show people. I really enjoy it. Like the horse the other day when it became sound after, teaching her how to ride it. And people need to know this. Like it's not something that's a fad. They need to know this stuff. If they're going to ride horses, they should know this. If they love horses, they should know this stuff.
Amen, sister. Yes. I agree 100%. And hopefully someday soon we can get you over here and do something together, because that would be fun to meet you in person, actually. And yeah, I mean, we did a wonderful event one year in Florida called the Dressage Summit, and that was cool. And that was with the Pirellis and Walter Zettel and Charles, and it was a great event. But I feel like we need more. And I agree with you that like biomechanics kind of scare people, like it's a special science and like it's not for every single person that sits on a horse, and has a horse. And I would love it to just be common knowledge. And I agree with you, like in Germany too, that everyone knows that. Like everyone who rides horses is familiar with like that train of thought.
In Germany, it's called Pferdegerecht. I don't know how to say it. Pferdegerecht riding. So horse-friendly riding. But horse-friendly riding kind of sounds like, I don't know, something else.
Well, and
but that's what it is. Horse-friendly riding. Not just throwing the reins at them and going for a trail ride, but it's riding for the good of the horse, basically. Yes. Riding to improve the horse rather than, break him down.
Well, yeah, and exploit him, because like horses do have these just amazing, they're just an amazing being, and I always laugh and tell my students, I'm like, well, I would not be a good horse, because I would just like, I'd be one of those difficult mares, because it's like you have to learn to do it the right way. And I love that. They
forgive so much and they tolerate everything, but
so much. And until, and they slowly, like, even if they're tolerating it, they tolerate it. And then all of a sudden one day they're lame and then they call you, and it's like, well, all of this could have just been avoided 8 months ago had we started at the beginning, where everyone should start, and we just have to kind of keep getting that information out there and explain it in ways that people can digest and see it. So I do have to ask, how did you find out about the Academy?
Just on Facebook. I join lots of things online. Like I just like to have a look, and because I teach at my clinics as well. I give a talk and then I teach. And basically my aim in teaching is just to get the horses working over the back and to give the riders the feel of what that feels like and how they got there, and you know. But I've never had any kind of formal training of, you know, instructor course or anything like that. So it's good to be able to hear things in different ways and yeah, get ideas from people. And obviously you have the same idea as me, like your horses are trained correctly as far as I can tell. And yeah, you're talking about biomechanics, and it sounds like your horses are happy and love to see you, which is a really good sign as well. If they call out to you when you go to the stable, because if they don't like you, you can't catch them. If they don't want to be hurt, then you know.
Exactly. Yeah, I've always prided myself on that, you know, and Charles DeCumpy, my mentor, who's also done some things with Gerd Heuschmann. And so that's kind of neat that kind of comes full circle. And he always would say, like, the horse needs to look forward to that hour with you because that's the highlight of their day. And I also do this funny thing. I had one student once call a psychic, and I was like, I want to make sure that if any of my owners ever called the psychic, like they would say, I really like that tall rider, you know, and I feel good when she rides me, you know, and I know that's a little like out there, but you know, to really, you know, and I'm always learning too. Like I just, you know, even took notes from your talk right now, because I totally know the feeling, and like sometimes the words and like the scientific connection is not always like the first thing that comes to my mind. And so it's fun to like talk about the actual technical terms and how that works. And because I feel that and I've been trained in that, but I'm not a veterinarian. So then it's like, you know, I'm just like, you got to get, you know, I went to Europe. My first lesson with Eula Dalosh was, he's like, you got to get the neck down so the back comes up. And I was like, I'm in the right place. And that was like the most simple way anyone could have ever said that, like a teeter-totter, right? But I was like, yes. And, you know, whatever, 20 plus years later, I still think of that. And, you know, it's been one of my goals to come into my stable and have all my horses happy to see me. And they're like, pick me, like ride me first, you know? So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And, I think it would be great to see if we can even, like, it would be fun even to have you look at some videos and talk about what you're seeing. Like, I know we can't get in person yet, but that would be fun to kind of think about how we could
Explain
have
what's happening biomechanically. And
and like I really like, and with the academy too, like one of my goals was to keep getting the right things out there so people's eyes are developed to look for the right things. And I think being able to analyze some things on a video and have you describe what you're seeing would be really a fun thing to do.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
So thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you.
I'm so grateful to meet you, and I can't wait to do something together in the future.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right, awesome.